what was your thought process in this new contract? What was important to you in this new contract?
Yeah, I mean, those conversations are happening, for months. A lot of it's just, a lot of it is investment in the program, right? Not specifically. I mean, obviously, the result is a contract that I'm signing and my compensation and those kind of things, but it's bigger than that in terms of commitment to the program in a lot of different ways. Obviously, college basketball is a competitive space, and I think that as competition continues to grow and elevate, that we want to continue to do the same. And I think it's important, specifically right now with some of the conference realignment and the new Mountain West, and trying to stay relevant outside of our conference as we continue to pursue, NCAA tournament appearances and national relevance for this basketball program.
And does this come up in recruiting at all? In the transfer portal, a lot of these guys are already seniors and just going to be here for 1 year. Do recruits care that much anymore that you have a 5-year or a 4-year deal? Does this come up?
No, I don't think recruits care about my contract.
The last question then is the staff getting a bump of any kind, whatever the dollar amount is, like your staff getting the bump. How important is that to this program, the continuity you're able to keep, not just because of the retention, salary pool rather, but because of the retention? How important is that to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing here in college basketball is talent acquisition, talent retention, and that does include coaching staff, right? Assistant coaches. I can just say from the April and May, this last 6 weeks of kind of putting this team together versus the version of it we did a year before, having everyone here in place from the start, having that sort of continuity was extremely helpful in that process. And obviously we believe in the players that we're bringing in, specific, the ones that we retained and the guys that are coming in, but I also have a lot of confidence in our coaching staff. They put in a ton of work. I think assistant coaches and the head coaches get a lot of the credit, a lot of the blame. Players, like assistant coaches, are doing a ton of this work. They pour their heart and soul into this on a daily basis, so I think RB and our administration recognizing that and investing in them is something that is important for our program.
As far as your decision agreeing to stay and things like that, how much did just the environment and the field of the place, all of that, how much all of those things factored into the decision?
Yeah, this place is amazing. I have one of the best jobs in college basketball. I'm excited to be here, and all of that is a factor. I think everybody in the landscape is competitive, right? Like it's college basketball, it's a competitive environment, and we want to compete at a high level. We want to build great basketball teams, and this is a place you can do that. And so the investment from our administration, from the university to help us build the best basketball teams we can build and compete at the highest levels that we can is something that I think energizes all of us, and we're excited to be part of.
And then putting that team together, you feel like you got everything on your wish list, your shopping list, I should say.
I'm excited about our team for sure.
Coach, what does your extension send to Lobo Nation in terms of what you want to continue building here at UNM?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's a commitment from both sides to continue to work together and like we said, build great basketball teams. My focus is on trying to build the best teams we can, put our program in the best position that we can, and we need support for that. And I know Ryan talked about that in a lot of ways and all the different areas of support. But if you look at the top tier of mid-major basketball outside the Power 5 conferences, there's 15 programs plus or minus that are really across the country in different kind of upper tier mid-major plus leagues. They're really trying to compete at a high level, and so we talked about the new Mountain West, and we want to compete for championships in the new Mountain West, but we don't necessarily want to limit ourselves to the conference, right? We want to compete beyond that. We want to try to put together a schedule that gives us opportunity for that. Like all the things that we're trying to do require investment, and so we appreciate that investment to give us the opportunity to compete at that level, and we're excited to do it.
As a coaching staff, with the retention of Uriah, Chris, and Jake, and the additions you have coming in, just how excited are you guys in terms of where this team can continue to build and grow off of last year?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about the potential of our group. You mentioned some really good players that we have coming back. We have some good players coming in, but also think that it's important, for everybody involved to understand that, like, we're starting from scratch every year, and things that happened in the past, the experience is helpful, but like last year's over, we're on to the next one. And, I think that investment in our program, investment in our staff, investment in our players, like all those things are great, as long as they're handled the right way and we keep the right approach. I think anytime that, there is that type of investment following, any degree of success, then you have to worry about complacency and making sure people have the right mindset and understanding that, we're just getting started and that we haven't accomplished anything.
Coach, you're in the middle of building the roster right now. Can you share with us what the next 90 days, the summer looks like, when you expect to get guys in the gym, things like that?
Yeah, so we're trying to finish up the roster now. We'll have hopefully have everybody here first week of June, and then we'll go for 8 weeks, June and most of July, just trying to kind of build the foundation, build habits, install basic fundamental things on both sides of the ball.
In terms of building a roster, if you look at last year's roster, one thing you guys didn't have a lot of was rim protection. You guys finished 259th in the country. And as a consequence of that, sometimes you had to protect the paint a little bit more. Is there a thought process on that with the 5 remaining roster spots that you guys have left? Is that possibly being need more rim protection?
Yeah, it's certainly something that we'd like to have more of. But it's also not as simple as like, oh, we'll just go get some rim protection. Like there's a lot of factors in that. College basketball recruiting has a financial component to it, and size, rim protection are some of the things that are at most premium in terms of the market. So, it's easy to look at like our statistical model and say like, hey, this is a weakness, right? But it's not as simple to sort of fill that hole. And rim protection for the sake of rim protection, if they don't fit into other things and contribute to how we're operating, can be a misuse of resources, right? So like there's a lot of factors in those decisions, and we'd like to have the most complete team we possibly can. We also feel like there's other ways to win basketball games as well.
What are your thoughts on the NCAA tournament expanding?
I have mixed feelings, as someone who grew up watching it. Like 64 is like, I think the bracket that will always be in my head. So even the 68 that we have now is like, I always kind of, there's some feeling of like, it's not quite right. It doesn't quite fit, but I think that at this point, there's good reasons to expand. I think that there was a time when 64 was some percentage of the total Division I teams a long time ago, and there's been a lot of teams added to Division I from that standpoint. So if you look at like percentage of teams who participate in the tournament, I think expansion could make sense. I think if you look at the way that the criteria has, skewed towards high major teams, there's reason to try to include more mid-major teams in that, to be determined if that will be an outcome of this based on just kind of how it's wired, for the higher major teams and how difficult scheduling can be for those of us in the situation we're in right now. But generally, I would say I'm in favor of it, even if that bracket doesn't quite fit my, nostalgic idea of it.
And we talked Indianapolis about the difficulty for teams at this level to schedule. But imagine that it hasn't gotten any easier since March, since the last time we talked about it. How is the schedule progressing for you?
Yeah, that's something that we're spending a lot of time on. Because with the adjustment into the league, I think we lost 7 quad 1 and 2 opportunities out of the conference, and so we're probably not going to be able to replace 100% of those in the non-conference, but we are trying to replace as many as we possibly can. And so that's another aspect of the investment, right? Because in order to do that, we aren't going to be able to do that here. You're not going to be able to play all those, quad 1 and quad 2 games at home. We'd like to get a few at home, certainly as many as we can. But it's going to require us to go on the road. It's going to require us to play neutral games, and there's a cost associated with those kind of things. So there's a lot of factors in the schedule, and it's something we're spending a lot of time on to try to both create a schedule that gives us an at-large opportunity. We want to bring teams into the pit that our fans are going to be excited to see us play, and we want to put ourselves in position to be successful. So. But everybody has those same, right? Everybody's kind of working with different motivations in how they schedule. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges in putting it together.
And being a college coach now, as opposed to about 10 years ago, is just incredibly different. It's night and day. Where you just recruit players that stick around for 4 or 5 years. You don't have to worry about paying athletes, and there's no such thing as quad 1 10 years ago. Like, how different is the job now, and how much more stressful is it now? Because last year you came in, there was no one in the room when you first got here. This year you only had Uriah was the only one left. How different is it now as opposed to before?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Part of me feels like 20 years from now we'll look back at this era and say, like, what was going on then? But as we're in it on a day-to-day basis, we just try to attack each challenge and do the best we can with everything. I think there was a time when, certainly recruiting was different and there were less variables. And so if you had scholarships less, you could go and look for filling certain needs, to Nick's question, right? And you can, hey, we need these things. Let's go and fill that. But like now there's more factors than just what you need in your roster and how you fill those holes. And things change very quickly. I think we saw that firsthand with, guys go in the portal, guys return from the portal, guys leave your team, guys join your team. It is very fluid for several weeks right at the end of the season. And I think you have to be flexible. Plans don't work, right? Like they don't all work out. We have a plan all the time. We usually have several, and then, we're not just talking about plan A, B, and C. I feel like we're probably in the, LMNOP range with our roster building and all the things. So it's it's interesting. It's not boring. There's certainly some aspects of it that we don't love, that aren't my favorite, but it is what it is, and everybody has to deal with it and can either complain about it or try to make the best of it. And so we're trying to do the latter.
Now, as we go into the new Mountain West, when you look at some of these new opponents that are joining the conference, what are some things that excite you about this upcoming season, but also what are some of the challenges that you're already seeing ahead?
Yeah, well, a couple of them I'm familiar with because when I was in San Diego, we were in the same conference with UC Davis and Hawaii. So those specifically, I know they have great coaches. They're really good programs. Travel to Hawaii is difficult. That will be a challenge. A lot of times that'll get you more on the back end on the return. Like, what do you have after coming back? Because it's a difficult trip. So there's a lot of new factors. I think anytime you change the league the way that it's changed, it's almost hard to guess. It's like you kind of have to experience it. You have to go through it. I felt that a little bit last year as someone new to the conference, and so now it's changing again. And then so there's aspects we'll have to sort of figure out and learn. And I think that's also a part of roster building, and how what type of roster can be successful, what style can be successful against different teams in the league. And so every time you change members of the league, then you're sort of adjusting that formula a little bit. And so, we'll learn something as we go through it, but, looking forward to competing in the new conference and, excited about the opportunities.
The conference meetings, if I'm not mistaken, is Steve Alford the only coach that's been in the league now longer than you? Is there even a third-year coach?
That can't be right.
Tim Miles.
Yeah.
Oh, Tim Miles. Tim Miles and Steve Alford.
Tim Miles.
Sundance was an assistant, but
Is that his first year?
that was last year, right?
Or did he have one before that? I can't remember.
Point,
I don't know.
You're one of the
There's a
vets-
lot of
you're one
turnover.
the vets
Yeah,
now
there's
in Mountain West. Were the coaches meetings any different? Like people looking to you for maybe a few more answers than a year ago?
I don't know that people are looking to me for answers. No, I mean, I'm happy to share my opinion in those situations. I think there's a lot of things going on. I think that it's more New Mexico, right? University of New Mexico, and where this program and this university fits in the conference landscape. I think we view ourselves as a leader within the conference. I think that we're investing in the sports that move the needle in the Mountain West Conference, and so we certainly feel a responsibility to be part of the solution in terms of moving the conference forward and getting not only ourselves but our entire conference into the best situation. So I would consider us to be active participants in that, but I don't feel like anybody's looking to me for answers.
We're the old guy in the room now. One more roster question. You're at 10 now. I know Ryan was just here talking about all the investment, but I know there's not a whole lot of investment availability left in your final few roster spots. So what can fans expect, and what is your expectation of these last spots? Are there minutes still available in these last spots you're getting, or are these just take a swing at something, or hopefully they stick around for a couple of years? Like, what are you trying to get in these last spots when the money is almost gone?
Yeah, well, there's always minutes available if guys play well enough, right? So it's more about if we can find the right guys who fit what we need, fill holes, find a role that they can carve out and contribute to the team. So I think those are things we're always trying to do relative. Every piece that we add, regardless of the first guy or the 15th along the roster, like, we're not doing it just to do it. We're not just adding players. We think about their fit, think about how they can be successful within our program and the way that we play. And so we're looking for guys who can do that, regardless of kind of where we are in the progression of the roster. So it's a different set of constraints that you're using as you work through it, and you add every time we make a decision and add a player to the roster, it affects the next decision and the next, right, in multiple ways.
Coach, how receptive are the old Mountain West teams that are leaving coming back to the pit playing? Obviously, Utah State you set up, and are you pursuing that?
I think depends on the program. Utah State, very receptive. Others not as much, but we're looking for solutions. We're having conversations with all those universities and programs about what might make sense, whether that's coming back to the pit, playing home and home, whether that's trying to find a neutral location that they might be a little more comfortable with. Those are all conversations that we're having with I'll say the vast majority of those programs. And, again, they're in a similar situation, right? They're in a league with fewer conference games, needing quality opponents to try to build their non-conference resume. So they should, in my mind, they should be natural partners for the scheduling part of it. But again, there's a lot of variables, and it has to work for both sides.
Coach, throughout the season, I saw a lot of local prep basketball players that are watching you guys, and of course, after speaking to a few of them, obviously they have dreams of playing for Lobos some days. I for someday. But what do you look for in a basketball player? Because obviously, you saw J. Cole and Uriah before they were, everyone saw them as J. Cole and Uriah. What are some tenets or philosophies that you look for when scouting a basketball player?
Yeah, we kind of start with smart, tough, skilled. Those are three things we want everyone in our program to possess, and if they have those, then that's a pretty good start.
For the last 30 to 40 years in college athletics, it was what does our facilities look like and how much is the coach going to get paid? It's become a more complete package now when we look at what are we investing into our student athletes and our staff as well. And so, we're optimistic that the majority of the staff can come back, which would obviously be a major win in this very fluid environment that we live in right now. But yeah, it's part of a larger package for sure.
So the decision to invest is one thing. Where is the money coming from?
Yeah, I think, when I look at it holistically, we've had a successful year in a lot of financial categories. And, there are benefits that come with that in terms of increased exceeding budget marks and so forth. The second piece of that is that, we've seen a surgence in interest and support as a result of the success, right? And so maybe partners that, are willing to increase their investment, or private philanthropy that's stepped up as a result of the momentum that we have. And then candidly, we've been very conservative and smart with our budgeting over the last few years, and we have good fiscal health to be able to make investments sometimes. And this is one of these.
Since you became interim in January, and you and Eric had talked about this probably even before that, I mean, the discussions were being had. I'm curious how much of it came down to that assistant coaching salary pool, how much of it came down on UNM side to the protection, kind of rolling back the buyout 1 year, was essentially what happened there. And what were the kind of the points that were either delaying or just the ones you guys were negotiating the most in this negotiation?
Yeah, I think I'll clarify. There was really no delay. I think we just got preoccupied by transfer portal and some other things that were very fluid. But yeah, I mean, you can't make any one decision in a vacuum. When I look at investment, it affects a variety of variables, and we have to look at it collectively. And so I'm sure Coach will have his thoughts on that as well. But it's really a total package and a total investment. We don't want to look at one area and then 3 months have a surprise in another area. So it's a holistic look at the program.
Are you trying to make sure that this is like a pattern? Like if another coach does well in their set sport, that maybe they get rewarded for better salary and different things like that, just so you can keep uplifting the school so to look attractive to conferences when there's another shift in the landscape.
Yeah, you said that well, Van. I think the hope that, from my seat as administrator is that the pattern is that we continue to hire the right people and we have success in those areas. And when you have the right people in place and you have success, the rest kind of takes care of itself. Certainly we evaluate our programs on an individual basis, but with the landscape we're in right now, it's important to kind of look in every single year.
And as far as other streams of revenue, are you guys seeking any other streams of revenue to help offset costs, things like that?
Yeah, that's certainly our job as an administration to pursue every available revenue path and look for incremental growth in every single category. So it's not just private, there's operational, there's state support, and it's going to take all of us as a community. I've talked about that before. Certainly we've stepped up in a way that we maybe haven't in the past, and it's going to take all of us to maintain that momentum.
Just how important was that investment in terms of just the vision and the future that you guys have for the basketball program, especially with the retention of Chris, Uriah, and Jake, and the transfers coming in?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question because there's a tangible aspect to maybe the dollars and cents that we're talking about, but the intangible aspect of the community pride and the sentiment about our athletic department locally and nationally as well. And it's hard to put a number on that, right? And I think having key individuals come back and our ability to retain talented individuals helps with that. And so I appreciate you asking that because it's sometimes hard to quantify, but if you look at it holistically and the narrative in the community and nationwide, like I said, it's certainly positive.
And then in terms of just the college basketball world, the transfer world, being able to have that stability here at UNM with Coach Olen to lead and his staff are able to recruit and basically not say we're gone after a year, but being able to get recruits to come in further down the line.
Yeah. A lot in college athletics has changed, but stable leadership is something that we hope can contribute to success. I'll let Coach speak a little bit to his vision about that, but recruitment and retention of staff and student athletes is key to everything we do in every sport that we have. from the administration on down. And so our ability to continue to do that at a high level is going to be imperative to our success.
Ryan, looking at the contract breakdown for Coach Olen, the increase in salary gets those 2 retention bonuses. And then the biggest increase comes from media participation and cooperation and program promotion. Can you tell us what the thought process was on increasing those portions of Coach Olen's salary versus the base salary? And what does that mean? Does that mean Coach Olen's going to be more available to the media?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance in contracts, but I think to the earlier question about generating new revenue, right? Those are areas that we see growth, particularly in some of our sponsorship categories and our private philanthropy. So yeah, there'll be more expectations there for not only coach, but our student athletes as well. And so those are areas when we look at as an athletic department that we see growth and upside. And so we're betting on ourselves.
Ryan, how important was this extension? Now, there's been Fernando Lobo leaving, other coaches leaving. You mentioned stability and continuity in the program. How important was it to get it done right now?
Yeah, it was largely important to me. Like I said, this is new news this week, but it's something we've been working on and thoughtful about for a number of months. And, to touch on an earlier point, we just have too much momentum to slow down. And I know we have the right people in place and we've had success and we've seen the fruits of the labor of that success. And I think our community's felt that and embraced that. And so, yeah, it's not the time to look back. It's the time to look forward for sure.
And we've talked a lot about momentum, keeping the ball rolling and continuing to build on what this program has going for it. What do you think these extensions, not just for Olen, but also for Coach Eck, signify nationally as far as where UNM stands in the new age that we're in of college athletics?
Yeah, I think, locally it signifies a buy-in from our coaches that they believe in what we're selling. And then nationally, it just contributes to a larger narrative that we're serious about investment and we're serious about success. And, when we control, what we can control in-house and we have success, people notice, right? And so it's easy to get caught up in what's happening nationally, but if we focus on what we're doing, I think we've seen that can be successful.
Ryan, speaking of new hires, how's the search for a new president coming up? Are you involved in that?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right spokesperson to talk about that, but certainly I've been engaged throughout the process in a number of committees. And so, I know the board will have a decision to make here pretty soon.
The era of revenue sharing seems like it's been around a lot longer than it has been, but just for those of us who don't really understand how the revenue sharing thing, the model works, the coaching salaries are going up. You're paying players before revenue sharing. Where was that money going? Was it just being reinvested in the program, or because it just seems like there's a lot more money to go around now than there was just a few years ago?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that this is not a UNM issue. This is a national topic of conversation, and for the last 20 to 30 years, there's been more and more money coming into the collegiate athletics ecosystem. And for the longest time, it was not going to the student athletes, and we're now in a student and athlete empowerment era, and that's important. And so we're cognizant of that. Our leaders are cognizant of that, and it's imperative to our success going forward. And so when you talk about, where is it coming? How are we funding it? There's existing revenue streams. You can go back and I can bore you with the details of the House settlement that come into athletic departments that can be directly attributed to student athletes appearing in competition, right? That's sponsorship, that's game tickets, obviously men's basketball, that's a very high revenue category for us. And so, the terms of the settlement kind of dictate that revenue to be shared, and we feel confident with how we're operating in that space.
Ryan, I have a follow-up to the presidential search. If this university doesn't get somebody that has her same level of appreciation for athletics, what do contracts like this, what's the future of contracts like this? Is this it better get it right this kind of time situation for the incoming president? Because I just don't know who in these candidates is an athletics president.
Yeah, I understand you have to ask the question. Obviously, I can only speak to the leadership that we have in place, and President Stokes has been imperative in getting some of these things done, particularly what we're talking about today. And so, once again, I'll kind of zoom out, and I think it's easy to get caught up in the expense in the moment. But the reality is we've been very fiscally smart over the last few years, and that's a testament to our entire staff and our entire university. There's been times in history of all athletic departments where that's not the case. And so when you're in a position where you're balanced and you've been conservative and you can be wise with your money, it allows for strategic investments. And we felt a return on these investments throughout the year in a variety of spaces. And so I think it's easy to get caught up in the moment, but when we zoom out, this is a product of us being very smart and wise over the years, in my opinion.
Anything else for one more? And just while we have you here, speaking to the announcement of the partnership with Texas Tech for the next football season. Just what were those conversations like and trying to get that scheduled?
Yeah, similar to contracts, there's a lot that changes year to year, and in particular in scheduling now. We've seen kind of a national influence of conferences changing how many conference games they're going to play, which has affected the conference scheduling. And so there was a window that popped up for both of us that made sense. And I think we both agreed that it was a great regional matchup that could excite both of our fan bases. And so, really excited about that. Obviously, there was a position there where we didn't have a game at all. And so to land where we did with a great regional rival is exciting for our program.